What's going on YouTube? Today's video is going to be on English, side spin, and how to measure it. With side spin, we're going to talk about tip contact, gearing, deflection, swerve, and spin-induced throw. With tip contact, I set up this training aid so y'all can see what I am talking about. For tip contact, what I'm talking about, if you have actually a zero tip contact, you're hitting the cue ball right on the vertical axis. If you want to apply spin on the cue ball, I would go with one tip contact. As you can see, my one tip contact is not a full-size tip. It's almost half a tip. Then I'll say this would be two tip contacts, three tip contacts. If you go any more further on your tip contacts to the fourth tip contact, you're likely to have a miscue. So that's why I don't like going too far out to the left or to the right of the cue ball. I want to stay around this zone on the cue ball itself to apply any of my spin. So if you want to do a top left spin, you would, for max, I would hit on this part of the cue ball. And if I want to do top right, I would hit this part of the cue ball. And those are my tip contacts. Now let's talk about gearing. Gearing is when you're hitting the cue ball with right spin. As you can see, the cue ball will have right spin. Once it hits contact, this will induce a left spin on the object ball, and this will also give you that spin-induced throw, sometimes throwing your object ball off away from the pocket. Now let's talk about deflection. One thing about deflection, there is no such thing as a no deflection shaft. There is such thing as a low deflection shaft. As you can see, when you're applying the cue ball and you striking the cue ball on the left hand side, you will see the cue ball will have deflection. Deflection is measured of the deviation on how far your cue ball will travel away from the striking point on your straight line. If you're applying less spin, for example, on this cue ball, your shaft will bend a little bit, will have applied the spin, it will deviate towards the right, but with that spin, it would want to swerve back into the straight line you're aiming at. One thing with deflection and swerve, when you're applying side spin on the cue ball, you want to be as level as possible. The more you elevate your cue, for an example, going such to an elevation, this is an exaggeration, and I'm applying right spin on this cue ball, you will see this cue ball swerve to the right. When applying side spin on the cue ball, I find out there's like really 4 ways to actually apply side spin on the cue ball. One way I know how I apply side spin is, you hear me see it on the comments, I use backhand English. The way that looks is I actually line up straight to the cue ball itself, and then I will actually move the backside of my cue and give it that tip contact. This will be for backhand English. So the other way to apply English or side spin is with parallel English. And those are the videos you see me do with the deflection test on these cue shafts. So on the way that looks is when I do a parallel English, is I'll actually land to where I want to hit the cue ball itself. And my cue is aiming straight for parallel English. The other way I was talking about is kind of weird. I don't like it personally, and I don't use it at all. Is what they use a front hand English. And the way that looks like is you'll come up to a shot perfectly straight, and then what you will do, you will shift your front hand, giving it a left spin, giving it a right spin. Going back to center, this is right, center, and this is left. So this would be a left spin or left English on the cue ball. And to do the combination is the front hand and backhand English. So what you would do is you would move your left hand, you would move the left to the left side, and you would pivot your backhand to give it that left spin. I find that also confusing to do. The way I always do it is I aim straight, and I'll just move my backhand to where I want to aim the tip at, and that's how I apply my English. Now let's set up some drills to actually measure your side spin for left English and right English. So what I like to do is get the cue ball, set it up on the second diamond on the long rail, and the second diamond or in the middle diamond on the short rail. And I also like to place a piece of chalk on the other side of the short rail, right in the middle, making it on the second diamond. What you will do is actually aim at this chalk with your cue ball, and you will apply your 1 tip and 2 tips. And with the 1 tip, you will want to hit it on the first diamond. That tells me how well I'm hitting my tips. So 1 tip will equal 1 diamond for me. And then 2 tips will equal to the pocket. And you would want to practice on both sides. You'll have to practice on your left side and your right side. And you also want to do this with a closed bridge and an open bridge. One thing about this drill, you're actually doing this drill at a lag speed. That means your cue ball will almost come flush to the end of the rail. So do this at lag speed, so that way you actually know how much you're spinning the cue ball and how much speed you're actually applying on the cue ball. For this shot, I'm going to use a closed bridge and use 1 tip, 1 contact tip, and try to get it hitting flush to this rail on the first diamond on the short rail with backhand English. This shot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an open bridge and hit it with the left English and try to do 1 contact tip and get it on this diamond. Once you start mastering the long rail, you want to practice also on the short rail. So to practice on the short rail, what you're going to do is get the cue ball at the same place on the second diamond on the short rail and the second diamond on the long rail. What you're going to also do is get your chalk and place it directly in front of the cue ball. What I like to do is place it right on the second diamond on the long rail. But the biggest thing about this shot is 1 full contact tip will not equal 1 full diamond anymore. It will actually equal half diamond. Your 2 tips will equal your full diamond. You gotta remember, this is a shorter part of the table. So you have to measure your contact tips as 1 tip will equal half the diamond, and 2 tips will equal a full diamond. Also, when you do this drill, make sure you do this also at a slow speed, so you are measuring your speed control and your tip contact. So you will do this where your cue ball will be almost close to the rail as possible. For this shot, I'm going to use a closed bridge with backhand English with 2 tips of contact. This shot will be an open bridge with backhand English with left spin and 2 tip contact. Remember, practice these drills because side spin is a big factor in playing billiards. It's kind of ironic when you actually look at the manufacturers. They'll say this shaft or this cue applies so much spin on the cue ball, but you gotta know how much spin you actually need to place on the cue ball. Remember, when you're playing billiards or 9-ball or any pool game, the more you spin the ball, you have factors that we'll be playing. You have gearing, you'll have spin-induced throw, you'll have deflection, and then you'll have swerve. So those are the biggest thing about applying spin on the cue ball, and one of the things you have to master. So I hope this video was informative. I'll see you next time, and my next video is going to be on speed control. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe me. Don't forget to thumbs up